So we're back and we're logged into our dashboard and we're going to start our first class. And I'm actually going to start in English 11 because we haven't done anything in English 11 yet. So I want to show you how it's going to look when you first start a class. I'm going to click on English 11 and it's going to launch. And you'll notice that classes are broken. Oh, I guess I did do some, sorry. Classes are broken up into units. And you can see a visual overview of that here. So you can see there are 10 units in this class, and you can see that not all the units are equal weight. For example, if you scroll to the end here, you notice that Unit 5 is actually the final. So there's only 4 tasks in Unit 5. And not every task is a graded assignment. Sometimes a task is the reading before an assignment. So to go ahead and go into an assignment, you're going to click that play button and it's going to take you in. And I'm actually going to start back over here. I'm going to start with the overview because I do want to talk to you a little bit about what the overview is. I think this is something that students frequently skip right over, but this part is really important, the objectives. So if I look at the objectives, I have a perfect idea of what I'm supposed to learn. So identify audience appeals, analyze language of arguments, and write an argument using rhetorical techniques. So if I was doing this class, what I would do is I would open up a new tab. I want to make sure I'm on the right account. Open up a doc, and I would call this document Notes, English 11. And I would put this split screen. So I would put it here, and on the other side I would put Apex. And I would grab these objectives and just pull them over. So now I have these objectives, right? And I can use these to shape my notes. I'm going to get rid of the document navigation just so that it's closer here. And now, as I go through this course, I can identify audience appeals, and I can look for these rhetorical techniques, because these are both going to be important terms to this unit. And you can do this with any class. The other thing I want to point out to you is the key terms are always in this unit overview in every single class. You may notice that these are orange. The links on the side, anything extra for your course to help you, is one of these orange links on the side. So if you click on anything here, it's going to pop up with something. These key terms are your vocabulary terms for a unit. Depending on the class, they might be more or less important. Now, I don't like the idea of just going through here and copying down the terms because I don't think you're going to learn those. I think it's much better for you to go through the course and identify them as you go. But if while you're doing a test, you want to come back to these key terms, it is important to know they're there. Okay, so now I'm going to click continue. And I'm going to go ahead and skip the checkup. And definitely you should not skip the reading normally. So I'm going to take you into the reading, and I want to point out to you, you have two things here. You have a reading guide and you have the reading materials. So a lot of students don't click on these orange things. This is where the meat of the material is for your English courses, is in these reading materials. So make sure you're clicking on these, and that gives you what you're supposed to read. So for this class, we're supposed to read The Rhetoric of Revolution, right? This is the essay that we're reading. There's lots of vocabulary words in here and lots of stuff. How do I know what to pay attention to? Well, that's where you can go back and look at the reading guide. And the reading guide gives you some questions. Now, some teachers might require you to print this out and fill it out. Some teachers might tell you just to look at it. It is up to the teacher. But for this particular one, let's say, oh, I know what railed means, but do I know what galvanized means? No. So I'm going to grab that and pull that over here. What does this tell you about what the colonies had to come? So I might grab just a few questions. Oh, especially autonomy. I don't know what that word means. Legislator, yeah, those are the people who make laws. So I'm just going to grab a few of these questions, pull them over, and then as I read, I would find the answers to these questions. So autonomy is underlined, and it has a 5 by it, so I know it's going to be in the footnotes. I'll scroll all the way down to the bottom, and it tells me to define autonomy. So what am I going to do then? I'm going to go to Autonomy. And I'm going to look up the definition. The right or condition of self-government. I have no idea what that means. Let me go to dictionary.com. Independence or freedom as the will of one's actions. Self-government or the right of self-government. I think this is going to be the right definition for this because I know they're talking about the American Revolution. So that's the right of self-government. Oh, I accidentally clicked on the V. So I'm just going to grab this, drag it over. Oh, it does not want to let me drag right now. Oh, so I'm going to highlight and I'm going to do Control-C. That lets me copy. You can right-click and copy too. And I'm going to do Control-V. That lets me copy, or you could right-click and paste, okay? So now I have that definition. So I'm beginning to take some notes and take shape. I'm not going to walk you through all of it because you'll get really annoyed. But I'm going to go ahead and close out this reading guide. And I'm going to keep going. So I've read this. I've taken the study. The study now goes over some of the things that I'm supposed to notice and analyze in the literature or reading that I did. In a lot of the other classes, the study is where the meat of your material is going to be. But this is going to answer my questions, some of my questions. Understanding rhetoric, this gives me the audience appeals. So I now have ethos, logos, and pathos. Now, am I learning anything if I just copy these over? Probably not. So what I really need to do is read this. Logos is an appeal to logic, specific examples, logical conclusions, indisputable facts. Okay? The presentation of facts and statistics. So I'm going to grab that because that makes sense to me, but I'm going to make sure I do read it and don't just copy it. Okay? Notice here under pathos, which is an appeal to emotion, they have this term anecdote, right? So I'm going to go ahead and under pathos, I'm going to add anecdote because anecdotes are just another word for stories. Usually anecdotes are short stories, but they're ways that you can convince people, right? My notes are taking shape even more. I would go through this whole study. So now let's say that I already went through this study and I just came back to look at something. I can navigate this way. So this is your table of contents. This lets you click on it and you can see the entire course as a collapsed or uncollapsed list. So what that means is if you click on this triangle, you can close up this list and you can just see the units. But if I click on it again, I can get it to expand, and then I click on this, I can get it to expand even more. Now I'm ready to go to my first quiz. Now I still have this side by side here, but I also want to have my Apex open so I can see it too. So I'm going to click Start, and I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to click Duplicate. And now I'm going to have two copies of the same tab open. On the quiz, right? I'm going to take this copy, and I'm going to drag it over here, and I'm going to go back to my study. So it tells me to read this sentence. I not only want to do well on this test, but I not only want to do well on this test, but I also need to do well on this test. So, which rhetorical device is used here? That is not one of the main rhetorical devices that we read about so far. So I'm going to keep flipping through. It's not a question, so it's not a rhetorical question. Actually, what it is parallelism, and I'm cheating because I already knew that answer. So I'm going to choose parallelism because the doing well on this test matches with the doing well on this test. That's what makes it parallelism. But the important thing is that you have the study here. So even though I didn't take this down in my notes, I can still go back to the study and find the answer. So I can hit submit, and I've submitted the assignment for my first quiz. Hopefully these strategies will help you to be successful. I encourage you to take some notes, and also to make sure you're using the study side by side with your quiz while you do it. This is going to ensure the best outcome for your quizzes. Now, I do want to talk to you about something, and this is something that might happen to you. So what I'm going to go through right now is I'm going to go through and I'm going to fail this quiz. So it is taking me a minute. Okay. So I have failed this quiz. Now notice right now I have the reset button, but you only get 2 attempts on a quiz. So if I reset it and I fail it again, I'm then going to have to talk to the teacher and contact the teacher to do it. You don't want to do this. You want to do it in the first try, right? I mean, obviously, the less times you have to do something, the better, right? So if I go through and fail this again, so I went ahead through and I went through it and I failed that quiz, and now it says contact your teacher. Depending on the teacher, they might have various tasks for you to do to make up for the fact that you failed this quiz twice. So you really just want to be careful and do your best on the quiz the first time through, because the more times you have to do it, the more time it takes. And we're all about saving time and doing well. I hope this is helpful to you as you start your APEX.